My name is Jasper. I'm a Dutch guy in my mid-20s and I've been working as a security guard for about 3 years now. After being an event security officer for about 2 years, I started working for a security company that handled other kinds of jobs, including night shifts at places not related to events and providing security at a few campgrounds. Since I worked a lot for this company and they grew to trust me, despite being a relatively new colleague, they asked me if I wanted to take on a job at one of these campgrounds, as it would provide a lot of hours. I agreed, thinking it would be a good opportunity to earn extra money and gain experience. Security is something I'm really passionate about. The work days and hours were long. I often worked 6 or 7 days a week, always in the evening from 8 p.m. to 3, 4, or sometimes even 5 a.m. For the sake of the story, I'll fast forward a bit. Quite a few things happened during that time, such as drunk guests, a man overdosing in his caravan, and even a woman having a schizophrenic episode in the middle of the night. In any case, none of those events stood out compared to what I'm about to tell you. The campground was large, and I was given a bicycle to get around more easily. One of my primary tasks was to patrol the grounds, since there was a curfew after 10 p.m., after which kids and teens weren't allowed to wander outside their tents or hang around playgrounds. While I built a pretty good rapport with the younger crowd, they were still kids, and they didn't really follow the rules. This led to the manager of the campground and my supervisor expanding my duties. Behind the campground, there was a forest with a large outdoor theater where music events were occasionally held. While it technically wasn't part of the campground, the kids would often go there at night and gather behind the stage. This was illegal, since you're not allowed to be in forests after sunset in the Netherlands, and it also violated the campground's curfew rules. So I was assigned to check the forest and the theater during my patrols. Now, I'm a big guy, about 6'5", and well-trained in self-defense, so a pitch-black forest didn't really scare me. I had caught kids out there plenty of times by sneaking up on them. Of course, to do that, it's important to stay quiet and low, which meant I didn't use my flashlight most of the time. One night, while patrolling as usual, I went into the forest to check it out. If you were really quiet, you could sometimes hear kids sneaking around the theater, laughing in the distance. That was the case this night, too. I sighed, thinking they still hadn't learned their lesson, even after multiple warnings and the manager threatening to kick them out. I biked to the edge of the campground where the lights and paved paths ended. I could hear whispering and quiet laughter in the distance, so I parked my bike and moved into the forest without my flashlight, staying as quiet as possible. When I reached the theater, nobody was there. I turned on my flashlight to make sure they weren't hiding, since they had done that before, but I couldn't find anyone. The faint whispers continued, but now they were coming from another direction. I knew there was a watchtower further ahead with a bench underneath it. I had caught kids hanging out there before, so I figured that's where they went. I moved through the forest toward the tower and stood behind a tree, watching the bench. Again, nobody was there. At this point, I still wasn't creeped out. I figured they had spotted me and were messing with me. My last thought was that maybe they had climbed all the way up the tower. The whispers stopped. Then suddenly, I heard a young man scream from above me. I immediately turned on my flashlight and pointed it toward the high watchtower. That's when it happened. It all happened incredibly fast, yet I remember it like it was in slow motion. A cloud-like humanoid shape, a pitch-black silhouette, appeared to fall from the tower at an unnatural speed. I only caught a glimpse of it as it passed through the beam of my flashlight. It was upside down, like it had been thrown head first from the top. It landed just a few feet away from me with a loud thud. Then, silence. I froze, convinced I had just witnessed someone die right in front of me. I widened the beam of my flashlight and scanned the ground around the tower. There was nothing. No body, no sound, not even disturbed ground. My heart started pounding louder and louder as the forest grew completely still. At first, I thought I might have been hallucinating. I was exhausted from the long hours, and maybe it was just a shadow crossing my flashlight beam, creating an illusion. But that wouldn't explain the thud or the scream. I ran back to my bike and rode straight to the bar, where the entertainment team usually stayed late. I told them what happened, and one of the women took me outside. She told me that the year before I started working there, a teenage boy had fallen from that tower and died on the spot. They never found out if it was an accident or if someone pushed him. After that, I refused to go back into that area. The fear was so strong that I ended up faking my reports lying about me having been to the forest to check. I still don't know if I was just hallucinating and imagining things, but I am a spiritual person, and this could truly have been the echo or even spirit of the boy. In the mid-2020s, when the pandemic was in full swing, I had an experience that I will never forget. Honestly, it was a very brief moment, but that moment silenced all the doubts I had about ghosts and supernatural phenomena. I have loved horror content my whole life, from movies like Annabelle to creepy YouTube videos about supernatural rituals. I was fascinated and used to binge watch them. I even used to say that I wanted to see a ghost in real life, just once. But after that afternoon, I never had any of those thoughts again. It was around 3:30 p.m. that day, and it was raining. It was cloudy, dark, and quiet. My family had ordered groceries from a grocery chain called Big Basket. We had started using delivery since everyone had come to rely on online services due to COVID-19. Because of an address error, the delivery person told us to come out onto the street. My father went outside to pick it up and locked the front door. Only my mother and I were left at home. While my father was out and my mother was in the bathroom in the small bedroom, I went to the bathroom in the master bedroom to urinate. Due to health reasons caused by myasthenia gravis, I used to sit on the toilet to relieve myself. I was alone in the room and the door was unlocked. Sitting on the toilet, bored, I bent over slightly and peered under the bathroom door. Through the small gap, I could see the floor of the master bedroom. Suddenly, in an instant, I saw a gray cloth moving rapidly toward the small bed. It was a sight I had never seen. It was different from the color of any curtains or fabrics in the room. It wasn't a bed sheet either. Because of the height of the bed, I couldn't see the sheets through the gap. It also wasn't a mattress. It seemed like a stiff, thick piece of fabric, the kind you might see in a prison movie. I froze. I sat up straight, bewildered. Mom was in the bathroom in another room, and Dad wasn't home. Then, who or what was in the bedroom? With my heart pounding, I cautiously opened the door. There was no one there, and no cloth. I searched the entire room. I even called out to Mom several times. She only answered me much later. Dad finally got the groceries and came back inside. But that moment, that fleeting scene, came as a huge shock to me. To this day, no one believes me. They say it's just my imagination from watching horror movies. But I know what I saw, and that incident changed the way I think about ghosts forever. And I am still curious about what I saw that day. Was it an afterimage of a spirit, or was it something else? I want to keep my name private, so you can call me Crimson. I live in a small town, and I've been watching your videos for over 2 years now. Honestly, I never thought I'd end up having a story of my own to submit. This happened about a week ago. It was the final exam day of my senior year in high school. For some reason, all the students from my school had to take the exams at a different school. That school wasn't very big, just one 4-story building, and each floor had its own bathroom. It was the very last exam, and during the test I drank a lot of water. As soon as it ended, and I stepped out into the hallway, I suddenly really had to pee. I went to the girls' bathroom on my floor, but it was packed. I thought about going downstairs, but I figured it would probably be just as crowded. I was taking my exam on the 3rd floor, and I knew there weren't many students assigned to the 4th floor, so I decided to head up there instead. The 4th floor was completely dark, all the lights were off. Every classroom door was locked, and it was hard to see anything. At least it was daytime, so there was a little bit of light coming in through the windows. As I walked toward the bathroom, I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned to look, there was nothing there. I wear glasses, and I sometimes misinterpret things, so I brushed it off and went inside. I opened one of the stalls, stepped in, locked the door, and started doing my business. That's when I heard footsteps, someone else entering the bathroom. I didn't think much of it. I assumed another student had the same idea I did and came up to the quiet 4th floor. A little while later, I finished, stood up, fixed my clothes, and flushed the toilet. When I turned around to open the stall door, something caught my eye. I could see feet through the gap under the door. Someone was standing right outside my stall. I thought about opening the door, but something deep in my gut told me not to. Then I slowly lifted my gaze and for a split second, it looked like someone's head was rising above the top of the stall door, like they were trying to peer down at me. I remember thinking, there's no way someone that tall should exist. I wanted to tell them to leave. I wanted to say anything, but my throat locked up. All I could do was stare at the feet. They looked way too big to be normal, and whoever it was, they weren't wearing any shoes. The skin was extremely dark, almost black. I stood there for what felt like 5 minutes. They didn't move. It was like they were waiting for me to open the door. Then suddenly, I heard 2 female teachers talking outside the bathroom, and just like that, the feet were gone. I let out a shaky breath and waited another couple of minutes before finally stepping out of the stall. I washed my hands and left the bathroom. Before going back downstairs, I glanced down the hallway. One of the classroom doors was open. I'm certain it had been closed when I first came up. I decided not to think about it and went back down. The exams were over and I actually did pretty well. But ever since that day, I can't stop thinking about what or who was standing outside that stall. And I keep wondering if I had opened that door, I might have come face to face with it. It all started on a regular afternoon. My cousins, our aunt, and I were walking around our neighborhood like we always did. The sun was starting to set, and everything had that calm, peaceful look. Nothing felt weird yet. We were just walking and talking until we saw this house. From the outside, it looked really nice. Not fancy, but well kept. Fresh paint, clean yard, honestly, normal. But something about it felt off. Like it looked too put together, like it was hiding something. We didn't say anything, we just kept walking. But when we saw the garage, the door was halfway open, and inside was a car. A nice-looking car. The kind that didn't really match the strange energy of that place. And standing next to it was this man. He had the creepiest smile. It didn't feel real. He just stood there and waved at us, slow and stiff, like one of those broken NPCs in a video game. His eyes didn't blink, his face didn't change, just that weird wave. None of us said a word, but we all picked up the pace. Something about him just didn't feel right. Later that same day, we went walking again. I don't even know why. Maybe curiosity got the best of us. When we passed the house again, everything was different. One of the front windows was shattered. The front door was wide open, and inside, we could see everything. The inside was completely trashed. Furniture broken, glass everywhere, walls messed up like someone had gone through and wrecked the place. It looked nothing like the clean, normal house we'd seen earlier. Then we looked at the garage. The car was still there, still clean, still untouched, but the man, gone. And just as we were about to turn away, we saw it. A shadow moving quickly through the hallway inside the house. We didn't wait. We ran as fast as we could. None of us looked back, and none of us talked about it after that. We never went to that house again, and honestly, I still don't know what we saw, but whatever it wasn't normal. Hi, I'd like to share a story that happened to my aunt about 14 years ago. My aunt's name is Rebecca. She was 23 years old when this happened and is now 37. She has light skin, stands 5'7", and has long brown hair. Before this event, my aunt had just moved into a new apartment after finishing college with a bachelor's degree in computer engineering. She had always been deeply devoted to her faith in Jesus Christ. She was raised in a Christian family, read her Bible every day, attended church regularly, and even preached to her youth church group. This happened on the night of May 9th, 2011, and according to my aunt, it changed her life forever. That night, before going to bed, she prayed for protection against all evil. Soon after, she fell asleep. Later that night, she had a dream. In the dream, Rebecca, my aunt, stood alone in a massive desert beneath a dark, bruised sky. Dust swirled around her feet while the wind howled in the distance. Then suddenly, Jesus appeared before her, radiant, powerful, but stern. "Wake up now," he said. "You need to wake up immediately and rebuke him." My aunt stared at him, confused and terrified.
Jesus? Rebuke who? What are you talking about?
Then his voice thundered across the desert.
Rebuke him in my name. Wake up now.
And then, with a snap of his fingers, my aunt jolted awake. It was 3:17 a.m. The room felt wrong instantly. The air felt heavy. The silence felt oppressive. And before she even saw it, she felt something watching her. Then she looked toward the far corner of the room, and there it was, a tall black figure, standing perfectly still in the darkness. Its shape was vague, almost unnatural, like a shadow darker than the room itself. It didn't move, it didn't breathe, but it was watching her. Frozen with fear, my aunt remembered the words from her dream. She grabbed the crucifix sitting on her nightstand and whispered,
"In the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you."
The figure twitched. My aunt stood up, her voice shaking. Then she shouted louder,
"I rebuke all evil in Jesus' name."
The figure suddenly lurched forward and then shattered like glass. Dark fragments burst outward into the air before dissolving into smoke. And then, silence. The room felt normal again, but my aunt never went back to sleep that night. Instead, she slowly walked toward the small bookshelf in her room, grabbed her Bible, and sat in the armchair beneath the window. A single lamp cast a warm golden light across the room, pushing back against the cold feeling the figure had left behind. She read her Bible for the rest of the night, and little by little, she began to feel safe again. Eventually, dawn broke, and sunlight slowly spread across the floor. 3 years later, my aunt moved out of that apartment, got married, and eventually had 2 children. To this day, she thanks God for the dream that woke her up. She still prays every day and continues reading her Bible faithfully. But she says she will never forget what she saw standing in the corner of her room that night. I was only 12 years old when it happened. It was in my village, at my grandmother's house. A place that always felt warm and safe in the daylight, but felt different once night settled in. It was around 2 a.m. I was in the living room with my cousins, just talking and laughing quietly, trying not to wake anyone. Then, we all turned toward the window. It was too sharp, too clear to be the wind, but we brushed it off.
"Probably just a cat,"
someone said. We tried to move on. Then we heard it. A loud crash, like glass breaking in the kitchen. We froze. Someone whispered, "Maybe a cat knocked something over." But deep down, we knew it wasn't. Before anyone could move. Again, this time, harder, slower, like it wanted us to know it was still there. My cousin, the only boy among us, stood up and slowly peeked through the curtain. Then he jolted back.
Close it! Close it!
He hissed, his voice tight with fear. But it was too late. We all saw it. A creature, staring right at us from the other side of the glass. Its face was pure white, smooth and round like a mask. Its eyes were wide open, no eyelids, no blinking. Just that unnatural stare. And the most terrifying part, it was whistling. Soft, steady, like it was amused. Like it was calling to us. We slammed the curtain shut and ran upstairs, our hearts racing like they were trying to escape our chests. We locked the door. We didn't speak. No one dared to look back. Later, 2 of my cousins got sick, weak, feverish, silent. And my grandmother, she didn't seem surprised. She just said, "They just wanted to warn you not to stay up too late." But I still remember that face. I still see it in my dreams. No eyelids, no blinking, just watching. And the sound of that whistling, it still echoes when the night gets too quiet. I wanted to share a true, creepy story that happened to me 6 years ago when I was 11 years old in 7th grade. I'm currently 17 years old and recently graduated from school, but this experience still haunts me to this day. It all started when I used to go to my aunt's house every weekend for my studies. I wasn't very strong academically, so she tutored me. I stayed at her place for 2 full days, Saturday and Sunday. My dad would drop me off every Friday evening and pick me up on Sunday evening since I had school on Monday. It became a weekly routine. My aunt lived on the first floor of an apartment building. Even back then, I always felt something was off. I don't know if it was just me being a kid, but every time I visited her house, it gave me a weird, spooky feeling. It always felt unnaturally silent. I clearly remember that the apartment directly above hers used to be occupied by an old couple who had sadly passed away. After their death, no one lived there for nearly 3 to 4 years. But while staying at my aunt's house, I often heard noises coming from that empty apartment above. At night, especially while trying to sleep, I would hear scratching sounds, like someone dragging furniture or moving heavy objects. It didn't sound like rats or normal house noises. Soon, I started experiencing what I later learned was sleep paralysis. At the time, I didn't know what it was. Even though I slept next to my aunt, I would stay awake most of the night, too scared to fall asleep. I felt like the moment I closed my eyes, something would happen. Sometimes I would wake up around 3 or 4 a.m., completely alert and filled with fear. My aunt heard the noises too, but she always shrugged them off. She didn't believe in ghosts or anything paranormal. I didn't want to bother her, so I stayed quiet most of the time. But sometimes I couldn't hold it in. I would cry and scream, telling her I saw a black figure in the corner of the room. She never believed me. This happened almost every weekend. I became terrified of going to her house, but I had no choice because of my studies. Then came autumn break, a 10-day holiday. I went to my aunt's place again, but this time my uncle was home too. He worked in another state and only came back during longer breaks. That evening felt normal, even though that same uneasy feeling was still there. When night arrived, my aunt and uncle went to sleep in the master bedroom. Since I was too scared to sleep alone, I insisted on sleeping with them, and they agreed. I swear, that night was one of the worst I've ever experienced. I lay down on the opposite side of the bed, closer to the windows. The windows were covered with curtains, and behind them you could only see the staircase and nearby apartments. I eventually fell asleep, but around 1 a.m., I woke up to whispers coming from the direction of the curtains. I immediately panicked and started crying. I felt bad for disturbing my aunt and uncle, but I couldn't help it. I stayed in fear for what felt like 2 hours, waking them up multiple times. Eventually, I got tired and somehow fell asleep again. For a little while, everything felt okay, but then something happened that I will never forget. Around 3 or 4 a.m., I woke up again. This time, it was the whispers again. But I stayed quiet. I didn't want to wake my aunt and uncle. Then, I saw it, and I swear it wasn't my imagination. I saw an old man standing there. He was wearing a gold suit. Half of his face was completely skinless. The other half had an eye, a nose, and a disturbing smile. He was holding a knife in his hand. The moment I saw him, I sat up and started crying uncontrollably. My aunt and uncle woke up again, this time clearly frustrated because they hadn't slept at all. I felt bad for them, but I was terrified. The next morning, I insisted on going home, and my uncle drove me back. What's even more disturbing is what I found out years later. In 2023, I learned something I'll never forget. The face I saw that night, it looked exactly like my uncle's father, who had passed away many years ago. To this day, I don't understand why I saw him. I still visit my aunt sometimes. She still lives in the same apartment, but thankfully, it's not as bad as it used to be. My name is Tanny, and this happened when I was 17 years old. I live in a large gated apartment complex. Back then, I had a pretty simple routine. I owned a white Spitz dog, and sometimes I would take him outside late at night so he could do his business. Since our complex always felt safe, I never thought much about it. One night, around midnight, I was on the phone with my friend, who I'll call Priya. She was also 17 and lived in the same complex. Since we were both awake, we decided to meet up and walk around for a little while. Our homes were located near the center of the complex. From my building, there was a long path that stretched straight ahead. At the end of it, the road turned right into a long, dimly lit area that ended in a dead end. The dead end was blocked off by a blue corrugated metal sheet, and behind it was a large empty lot. So Priya and I walked in that direction, just two teenage girls talking quietly while my dog trotted beside me, sniffing around like normal. Then I saw her. There was a woman standing near the blue metal sheet. She was wearing a dark green dress, and her hair was tied into a loose, uneven bun. But the thing that caught my attention immediately was her eyes. They were wide open. She wasn't blinking. She just stood there with her legs slightly apart, staring directly at us. In one hand, she held a small black plastic bag. At first, we thought maybe she was lost, or maybe she needed help, but my dog seemed to know better. He suddenly started whining. Then he began pulling hard on the leash, trying to drag me away from her. A few seconds later, the woman started speaking, but it wasn't English. It was some kind of rhythmic, guttural language I had never heard before. And while she spoke, she kept giggling softly to herself. Then she started moving her hands in these strange, exaggerated motions, almost like an actor performing on stage. That's when Priya and I realized this wasn't just some weird encounter. Something was seriously wrong. We turned around and started walking back as fast as we could. By then, my dog had completely panicked. He was growling and snapping behind us while pulling hard against the leash. Then we heard footsteps slapping against the pavement. She was following us, and she wasn't just walking. She was moving in this frantic, unnatural way, much faster than I expected someone dressed like that to move. Priya and I immediately started running. In the chaos, I lost my grip on my dog's leash. Thankfully, he knew the way home. He bolted toward my building gate, barking wildly, while Priya and I ran after him. At one point, I made the mistake of looking back. I wish I hadn't. The woman was sprinting after us, holding part of her dress up so she wouldn't trip. Her eyes were still locked onto us, and she was still muttering in that same strange language while laughing under her breath. Then she threw the black plastic bag at us. Luckily, we had already gotten far enough away. The bag slammed onto the asphalt behind us. We didn't stop running. We ran straight to the security booth. My dad was one of the people in charge of the complex, so the guards took us seriously immediately. One of them grabbed a large baton and headed toward the dead end to search the area, but the woman was gone. They checked the entire stretch near the blue metal sheet. Nothing. No woman, no footsteps, no sign that anyone had been there at all. But the worst part came the next day. Priya had seen the bag more clearly than I had. She told me what was inside it. Pieces of flesh and fur. She couldn't tell what kind of animal it came from. I'm 20 years old now, and Priya and I still live in that same complex. Neither of us go anywhere near that dead end after dark. Even now, we still don't know who that woman was, or what she was waiting for near those blue metal sheets. Hi, Wanzi. I wanted to share a personal story that happened to me a few weeks ago. For privacy reasons, I won't share any real names, so you can just call me Nicole. I have two siblings, an older brother and a younger sister. Let's call my sister Alex and my brother Gabriel. Both of my parents are workaholics and usually work at night. They only come home around 12 to 1 a.m., so my siblings and I are home alone every night. We don't mind, since we're used to it, and we even have a dog, a dachshund, named Trix. Our parents adopted her so my younger sister and I would have someone to play with and keep us company. For 3 days it had been raining heavily, and the power kept going out across our area, so we were dealing with constant blackouts. One night, it was raining heavily again. Our parents went to work, and Gabriel went to hang out with his friends. Just for clarification, my brother is much older than us. He's in college, while my sister and I are in junior high. So sometimes, it's just the two of us at home. That night, my sister and I were in our room with Trix, who was sleeping on our bed, while we watched videos on our phones. Then, the power went out again, which annoyed both of us. I thought about going to sleep, but decided to stay awake to keep my sister company. We used a flashlight for light in our room. While we were talking, I heard the front door open. since our room is right near it. That was weird. Gabriel always comes home late, and I knew I had locked the front door. My parents and brother always remind me to lock everything, and they usually knock or call my name so I can let them in. But this time, they didn't. I kept hearing footsteps moving around the house while my sister continued talking, completely unaware. Then, things started to feel wrong. Trix suddenly woke up, walked toward our bedroom door, started sniffing, and then began growling. That's when I started to panic. She only acts like that when she senses a stranger, maybe an intruder. My gut told me to act fast. I quietly locked our bedroom door, turned off the flashlight, and told my sister to be quiet. She didn't understand at first, so I quickly typed on my phone, "Someone is in the house. It's not Mom, Dad, or Gabriel." She went silent instantly. She picked up Trix and held her close so she wouldn't bark and alert whoever was inside that we were there. With the rain and the blackout, I hoped the intruder didn't realize anyone was home. We stayed completely still, just listening. Then suddenly, we heard utensils crash onto the floor in the kitchen. The noise was loud. I turned on my phone for a little light and looked at my sister. She was holding Trix tightly, terrified, while Trix stared at the door. I didn't know what to do. The power was out, so we couldn't call anyone, and it was pouring rain outside. We felt completely stuck and isolated. So we stayed quiet as best we could. Then, a loud bang hit our door. We froze, and then we heard a man's voice yell,
"Come out, bitch! I know you're in there!"
That's when Trix started barking aggressively. The man kept banging on our door harder and louder. I was panicking, but I knew I had to do something. I ran to my closet, grabbed 2 jackets, and gave one to Alex while I put the other one on. I told her to hold Trix, grabbed our phones, and made a decision. We were getting out through the window. Even though it was dark and pouring rain, I grabbed her hand and we climbed out. The moment we hit the ground, we ran. We ran as fast as we could to our neighbor's house and begged them to let us in. They immediately helped us. I explained everything while my sister started crying, still holding Trix, soaked from the rain. Our neighbors stayed with us and made sure we were safe. When the power came back on, they called the police and our parents right away. When our parents arrived, they were terrified. Gabriel was with them. Our mom ran to us, panicking, while our dad spoke to the officers. My sister and I explained everything to the police. Then they searched our house, and they found something. All the utensils were on the floor, and one item was missing, a knife. Worse, our bedroom door was wide open. I felt sick when I heard that. Nothing valuable had been taken, just the knife. The police couldn't do much. There were no fingerprints, and we never saw the man's face, only heard his voice. It's been a few days now, and we're staying at our grandparents' house for safety. Maybe we'll go back home soon, but only after my parents are sure it's safe. Gabriel has stayed with us since then and hasn't gone out with his friends. We're okay now. Escaping through that window that night was the right decision. But if I hadn't made that choice, who knows what would have happened.